The 1980s were many things. Loud, bold, irresistibly extra. It wasn't just a decade, it was a statement. And when it came to perfume, whispers were welcome. These fragrances didn't blend in. They strutted, floated, announced themselves before you even said hello. 10 loudest fragrances from the 1980s. That made an entrance. Giorgio Beverly Hills, 1981. Giorgio wasn't just a perfume. It was an air horn wrapped in gardenia. Released in 1981 from a boutique on Rodeo Drive, it practically announced itself. Big florals, orange blossom, tuberose, jasmine that walked into a room 10 minutes before you did. It didn't care what anyone thought. Giorgio was the party. Poison by Christian Dior, 1985. Poison wasn't subtle, it was hypnotic. Launched in 1985, it was bold, mysterious, and borderline dangerous. Opulent berries, incense, cinnamon, amber. It smelled like rebellion in a velvet dress. It made people turn, sometimes in awe, sometimes in alarm. But always, always in reaction. Obsession by Calvin Klein, 1985. Obsession was heat in a bottle. Lust, memory, longing distilled. With spices, vanilla, and musk, it didn't smell clean, it smelled like want. It clung to clothes, hair, skin, and if someone wore it, you remembered days later. Opium by Yves Saint Laurent, 1977, but exploded in the 80s. Technically released in the late 70s, but the 80s made Opium a superstar. Spiced incense, rich myrrh, dark florals and heavy woods. It didn't whisper, it smoldered. Exotic, addictive, a little taboo. Critics loved to hate it, but millions couldn't resist it. Diva by Emmanuel Ungaro, 1983. True to its name, Diva was high drama. Opulent rose, oak moss, honey, leather. It smelled like you had arrived and were wearing diamonds. If you wore Diva, you didn't lean into the conversation. You owned the room. Paris by Yves Saint Laurent, 1983. Paris was a floral bomb wrapped in elegance. Rose, violet, iris, layered so thick it practically left a scent trail. Romantic? Sure, but also confident, loud, like shouting, "I love you," in the middle of a crowded cafe. Knowing by S.D. Lauder, 1988. This one didn't giggle. It didn't flirt. Knowing walked like it owned the company. Dark rose, woods, patchouli. It was grown up, sophisticated, a fragrance with authority. Not for the faint of nose, but for the woman who didn't need permission. Lizatis by Givenchy, 1984. Lizatis was theatrical, a French opera of scent. Mandarin, tuberose, coconut, civet. Yes, civet. It was all over the place, and somehow that worked. It was beautiful and a little, much, which made it perfect for the 80s. Lauren by Ralph Lauren, 1978, iconic in 80s. Though it launched in the late 70s, the 80s made Lauren iconic. Big aldehydes, carnation rose, and cedar. It smelled like horse country and country clubs, but with attitude. Not just pretty, polished, and not afraid to be noticed. A Marriage by Givenchy, 1989. A Marriage was the 80s swan song, a final crescendo of floral power. Launched just before the decade turned, this fragrance was rich with gardenia, neroli, tuberose, and peach. It was romantic and lush, and loud. The kind of scent that didn't just stay behind when you left a room, it kept talking. These weren't just perfumes, they were declarations. They didn't play it safe. They leaned in, took up space, made memories, and maybe a little trouble. And decades later, they still linger. Did you wear one of these powerhouse perfumes? Which one made your entrance unforgettable? Tell us your story, the scent, the outfit, the moment. We're listening.